Hey guys, welcome to a bit of an unusual video. This is one I've been putting off for a while, and I'm glad I did. This video is looking at how decks are affected by rotation. First of all, let's look at the key cards going in rotation. All of the E-block cards are rotating out and will no longer be legal to play in TPCI organised play events, such as League Challenges, Cups, Regionals, etc. So what are we losing? The big four individual cards I think are Battle VIP Pass, Escape Rope at Level Ball, and Path to the Peak. One of these already has a pseudo replacement available in the new set coming via rotation, but I'll talk about that shortly. Escape Rope and Level Ball are gone completely, which doesn't hit too many decks that badly, but arguably VIP Pass, even with its replacement, does knock some decks down a few pegs, notably the big basics like Roaring Moon EX and Iron Valiant EX. Path to the Peak is an interesting one because while it kills the key strategies of some decks, it's always Giratina decks. It always allows other decks a lot of breathing room. On a deck-by-deck basis, these decks are the ones most heavily affected by the rotation of E-block. Mew VMAX, Rapid Strike Box, and Zoroark Box are completely gone. Their entire core is in the E-block, and I think we will all rejoice in the death of Mew VMAX, which has been an absolute nightmare to deal with since its release. And I wrote this script just before its most recent win at Utrecht, so Mew VMAX going is huge. I'm very excited to see it go. So what about the other decks? Despite losses of cards and some gains, I think there's a decent amount of movement in the meta with the arrival of rotation. Some decks are either dead in the water or at least wounded enough to be dropping down the ranking, but still have some signs of life and are potentially just waiting for the right deck list. Those deck lists are God of War EX, which loses Battle VIP Pass, Fog Crystal, Shining Arcana God of War, Zacian V, Mirage Step Curlier, Mew, Level Ball, and Avery. That is a huge amount of cards disappearing from the deck. That's a lot of setup cards disappearing as well as the deck's main attackers. There are new lists popping up which utilise Arven, focus around Drifloon, and even Raging Bolt EX. Miraidon EX says goodbye to its backbone completely with the loss of the Fluffy engine, pushing further reliance on Electric Generator. The deck also loses Escape Rope and Peony, which takes out another strategy completely. Roaring Moon EX is hit by the loss of Galarian Moltres V and Battle VIP Pass, which just makes finding its great turn 1 board state just a bit harder to put together, as well as losing another energy engine in Moltres V plus Energy Switch. Entei Valiant EX is nowhere to be seen for now. 4 of its switch cards are gone in Escape Rope, Medcham V is out so no Yoga Loop shenanigans, VIP again stopping that early setup. Big basics are really getting hit hard by that. Finally, Sablezard also seems to be largely absent right now. I personally think there's potential in replacements with some lost cards here in Raihan and Clara, but with also losing VIP Pass and Escape Rope, maybe this deck is just lying dormant for now. But how about decks that are thriving through rotation, with either a new way to play or just loving life without Path to the Peak? Charizard EX is probably the first one to talk about. While it loses some key cards in Battle VIP Pass and Level Ball, the deck is more than happy knowing Charizard and Pidgeot's abilities cannot be stopped at the moment. Even with that being true, we're seeing the rise of the Bibarel build again too, with potentially easier ways to take out Pidgeot EX, removing a good chunk of Charizard's game plan. Double Bibarel is becoming potentially more attractive as an option. Lost Box, or Lost Parabox as I love to call it, please catch on, it's such a great name, is also flourishing post-rotation, with Iron Hands EX and Roaring Moon EX as main attackers. This deck feels like it has an answer to everything. Battle VIP Pass is replaced, a new pivot option is available, and overall the deck doesn't lose any power. Lugia V-Star is one of the most surprising survivors of rotation. It's had 3 different iterations, arguably 4 different iterations, it's kinda crazy. While it loses its single strike partners, which have largely fallen out of favour to the colourless build, Lugia finds a new partner in Cincino. Its special roll attack hits for 70x the amount of special NG cards attached to it, allowing you to swing up to 350 damage in a single turn, and that is enough to take out Charizard. Chempao EX basically stays the same. The deck replaces the 4 slots it uses for Cross Switcher with 1 card in Prime Catcher, a new Ace Spec card, more on that later, and gives you 3 more slots for consistency, which the deck sorely needs. Gholdengo EX is free to draw as many cards as it likes in its pursuit of energy cards to attack every turn. Much like Chempao, it replaces Cross Switchers with Prime Catcher, and while it loses Avery and Battle VIP Pass, it still has access to plenty of tools to make it look like a massive threat going forwards. Snorlax Doll seems to be unstoppable at the moment. It also loses some key cards in VIP Pass, Echoing Horn, Peona and Sydney, but controlled decks are getting so many new things to play with in Temporal Forces, and I think you'll see a lot of Snorlax after rotation. I haven't mentioned Giratina V-Star because whether I'm positive or negative about it, the comments will tell me I'm wrong. I think the deck still does well post-rotation, it just has to be played differently with the lack of Path to the Peak. Arceus Giratina is also in a similar boat. Both decks get access to Maximum Belt though, which could swing games even without good old Path Iono combos. So I've mentioned replacements and Ace Specs, and without going hugely in depth on what's coming out in Temporal Forces, I do want to highlight the card that is almost straight up replacement, and the Ace Specs too. So as you might know, the glaring card that most of these decks lose is Battle VIP Pass. This card leaving affects decks in both extremes. Either it doesn't matter at all because of the replacement that's coming, or it absolutely decimates the potential setup of some decks. That replacement is Buddy Buddy Puffin. This card feels like such a better balanced version of VIP Pass, allowing use at any point in the game but only for basic Pokemon up to 70 HP. This allows setup decks like Charizard, Chempao to not have a perfect turn 1 and immediately be behind. It also allows a late game setup which doesn't feel all that possible right now. The best example of this is losing back Excalibur for Chempao. Right now Now if that happens, you'll likely get 1 Frigibax down, but that's easily targeted. With Buddy Buddy Puffin, you can put 2 down, if you lose one, you've got the other already. And finally, Ace Specs. If you're relatively new to the game like me, these have existed before in the game, but the closest analog is that they're like Radiant Pokemon, but for trainer cards. You can only have 1 Ace Spec in your deck, and they are powerful cards. I'll run down the Ace Specs currently announced for Temporal Forces, and show which decks are currently using them for the majority. Awakening Drum is largely being utilized by Ancient Box. It is draw a card for each of your Ancient Pokemon in play. Hero's Cape, add 100 HP to this Pokemon, used by Snorlax Store and Great Dusk Mill. You just want your big boys to be even bigger. Master Ball is exclusively used by Lugia V-Star right now because they just need as much Pokemon Search as they can get, and if they could get away with a 5th Ultra Ball, they would absolutely be getting it. Maximum Belt has been used by Arceus Giratina, as well as a couple other decks like Giratina Lost Box, just to make sure you can hit those numbers for Charizard with Giratina. Prime Catcher is the most heavily used. It is very similar to our Cross Switcher. You choose one of your opponent's bench Pokemon and switch it with the active, and then you do the same. That has been used by Charizard EX, Chempao EX, Goldengo EX, and Turbo Hands. Reboot Pod is exclusively being used by Future Box. The Ancient and Future cards very much are kind of going with their archetype. This allows you to attach a basic energy from your discard pile to each of your future Pokemon in play. And finally, Neo Upper Energy, which seems to be completely dead in the water, honestly. There's some decks not mentioned because we don't have a huge amount of data, but you can get a rough idea of what would be good in decks based on their usual strategies. Most decks are using Prime Catcher as it's a powerful an effect, but most Ace Specs are certainly seen play in the right decks, especially except for Neo Upper Energy, but every list needs a dud. So there we have it. Is your deck surviving rotation? Do you have a new deck you're looking forward to playing? I focus purely on how rotation is affecting current decks in this video, but hopefully gives players an idea of what to target from the new set going forward. I'd love to do a video on new archetypes coming out, so if you'd like to see that, let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed this one. As usual, all my links are in the description below, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya!